So here I am at the outside of the reconstructed Fort Necessity. I'm standing right outside these bermed redoubts that were constructed by the defenders. There's a swivel gun right here, which were present at the battle. It's often debated how effective or usable they were during the battle, but there were at least a handful of them here in the inventory of the troops. These berms, while looking like a good defensive thing, actually wound up against the working against the British advantage as the afternoon went on, and there was a hard rain, and all the men sort of kneeling into these trenches all filled up with water, and with most of them being sick already, wounded, tired, wet from the whole day of fighting, and then sitting in 2 or 3 feet of muddy water while people are bleeding and dying around you, it doesn't make for a very good position to be in. Just going to kind of walk around a little bit just to see how small this fort, and I'm often surprised at how big pieces of history are made at very small locations. This stockade is only about 53 feet in diameter. Originally, these berms all around were thought to be the outside wall of a trapezoidal fort, and further digs in the 50s revealed that to be an earth redoubt, and the fort itself to actually be this circular construction in the middle, which is quite unique, and there aren't very many other examples like this in North America other than some Native American forts were built in circular fashion. So how Washington even came up with this idea is a little bit up for debate. You get a sense of the size of the stakes here, all around, cut by hand in a matter of days and thrown up. The stakes are all, you'll see, they're flat on the outside and rounded on the inside, and it was thought that this was to hasten the construction by taking every log and splitting it in two. That way you would only have to cut down half as many logs. Again, that's the thought. It's hard to tell because there's no real written documentation of that. Also along the way, every so often you get these shorter sort of firing loops that in theory somebody could lean their musket and fire through here, and the rest of the thing would be providing protection. In reality, this became a splintery mess of smoke and fire from the French and the Indians coming from the tree line outside. There were sparks flying and bits of wood flying, and of course metal shot flying. And so this again, the stockade meant to protect, while it did provide some protection, also wreaked havoc on the men that were sort of crowded into this just 53-foot diameter space. In the middle here is a reconstructed building. In the middle, these are squared off logs. I would doubt that they would have had the time to actually square these logs. These are all machine milled logs, but probably would have been more hastily constructed rounded log, a more typical log cabin look that people think of. And this was not so much of a stockade or a point of like last defense, but it was more of a storage place. And not only for, here they have some barrels and some powder and some other supplies. I've read some accounts that the reason for actually constructing this was not so much the defense of this material, but to keep, there was a large store of booze that the men were getting into. So all these men that were fighting on that day who were, sick and malnourished and tired and all those things, many of them were also drunk. So their ability to fight, which was not uncommon for soldiers of that era, to be paid partially in alcohol, whether it be a rum or whiskey or something like that, but also have a daily ration of that. And a lot of them wound up acquiring it on their own, and you read a lot of accounts of a lot of soldiers being drunk through these kinds of actions. So again, a lot of factors working against the young lieutenant colonel fighting here. And here's a look back from the fort at that tree line. You see some of these little white signs in the distance, and that's how far away the French and the Indians would have been firing from. And you just see this entire tree line around the whole fort and an open field, and just how difficult and poor a position they had found themselves in on that day.